Tonight we're hearing from a man who used bottles of beer and water to save his home.
It is quite a story. Michael Cole survived the fire, but he also watched much of his town go up in flames. KCRA 3's Lisa Gonzalez has his incredible story.
It was a casual night for Michael Cole.
We got a text message in the early afternoon about it was going to be a mandatory evacuation. And pretty much he didn't even think about it because they didn't come around telling us yet.
At around 9:30, he heard propane tanks exploding in the canyon to the north of his Berry Creek home. He drove 1 mile and the fire was already at Bald Rock Road.
And went home and went in the house, grabbed a beer, walked outside. Fire was at my front door.
That quick?
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Cole heard fuel cans popping in his yard. Then his outbuilding caught fire.
Then the house started on fire, the porch. It was hot. Wind was going about 70 miles an hour. And it was pure hell. It was pure hell.
Cole's well was out of water because PG&E had shut off the power the day before. He took the bottle of beer in his hand and went to work.
I just started throwing beer and water on the fire on my house and getting it put out as much as I could.
He had his 2 hands, a little over a half a case of beer and a case of water to save his home.
Shaking it up and spraying it, and took a shovel and was trying to knock the flames out.
Cole's house caught fire 3 times throughout the night. Each time he was able to save it. Others weren't so lucky.
I just started checking around for live bodies. You know, I was finding dead animals all over the place, burn up vehicles.
Cole captured this video from his car. The local firehouse and Berry Creek Elementary School burned to the ground.
There was fire coming off the roof, and it went so fast. The kindergarten classroom across the parking lot was not involved yet. And about 35, 40 minutes later, it had just succumbed to the heat.
Cole was able to salvage this scrap of the school's American flag, melted by the flames, a painful reminder of the devastation in Berry Creek. Lisa Gonzalez, KCRA 3 News.
Michael's saving the remnants of that American flag. He wants to frame it and then return it to Berry Creek Elementary School when that school rebuilds.
D'Angelo, known as both the Golden State Killer and East Area Rapist, confessed to 13 murders and more than 50 rapes between 1975 and 1986.
And now, after decades of waiting, his victims are getting the chance to tell their stories, knowing the man who terrorized them will be spending the rest of his life in prison. KCRA 3's Leticia Ordaz has this report. We do want to warn you that some of the details in this are graphic.
Karen Veyer read a statement by her sister Phyllis. Phyllis Henneman was just 22 years old and the very first victim in Sacramento County of the man who would soon be known as the East Area Rapist.
On June 17, 1976, I went to bed not knowing that in just a few hours my life as I knew it would change. Joseph D'Angelo, henceforth called the Devil Incarnate, broke into my home, blindfolded me, tied me up, threatened my life with a knife, and raped me. Life as I knew it irrevocably changed that day. That once happy girl became fearful, suspicious, hypervigilant. My sense of safety was shattered.
On July 17, 1976, Peggy was just 15 years old, home alone with her sister. D'Angelo pried open a locked door, tied them up, and raped her.
Mr. D'Angelo broke in and woke up my sister and tied her up. He then came to my room and woke me up with his hand over my mouth. After rolling out of bed and swinging at him, I was hit several times on the head before being tied up, gagged, and blindfolded. We were both threatened, and I was raped multiple times. We were both left with numbness in our hands for several months because our wrists were bound so tight. It hurt to brush my hair because he had hit me so many times on the head. There was so much emotional and physical trauma that I carried with me. My God, we were just high school kids living a normal life, going to school, church group, having friends over. Now this horrific experience was part of me.
Patricia Cosper spoke for her mother, Patricia Murphy. DeAngelo attacked Murphy while she was doing laundry at her parents' house. Murphy described what it was like to go back to that home time and time again in the years that followed her rape.
My mom didn't want to move, so I continued to visit them there. I celebrated Christmas and other holidays at their house as if nothing ever happened. Sometimes there was no place to sit except on the organ bench he tied me to before he drank my dad's beer and left.
Lisa Blumenthal spoke to the court in a recorded statement. She recalled how her mother was raped on February 7, 1977. She was just a child when she woke up to hear her mother screaming and see a shadowy figure wearing a ski mask near her parents' bedroom.
I remember waking up confused, wondering why she didn't come and help me get up for school, get ready. And then I felt it. Something heavy, something dark, something very wrong. I turned the corner out of my bedroom and saw a dark figure with a ski mask at the end of the hallway. I knew he was bad. Even as a child, I could sense evil.
Many more survivors and their family members stood before DeAngelo. Some said they had forgiven him for their own sake, not for his. Others described him as the devil, an animal, a real-life monster who deserves the highest punishment the law allows.
Some people are wired wrong, and DeAngelo is one of them. Luck finally ran out for this messed up human being. At least a poor excuse for one. It is my hope that you punish him to the full extent of the law for the horrific crimes he committed. He admitted that he caused all the suffering and misery to so many victims over the past 40+ years. He truly is an evil monster with no soul.
I heard him admit to the crime and the rape. And now finally, the end of this trauma is here. He's a horrible man, and none of us have to worry about him anymore.
While we all have suffered for 44 years, your suffering, sir, has just begun.
Leticia Ordaz, KCRA 3 News.
Today was day 2 of the sentencing hearing for Joseph DeAngelo. The confessed East Area rapist and Golden State Killer appeared in a Sacramento County courtroom again, facing several more of his victims, many speaking to him directly for the first time since they were attacked decades ago. And it was another emotional day in court, and there were some surprises as well.
KCRA 3's Vicki Gonzalez reports, and we want to warn you, you may find some of these details that you're about to hear very disturbing.
A stunning start to today's sentencing hearing for the man known as the East Area rapist and Golden State Killer. A woman raped by Joseph DeAngelo introduced another woman she calls a fellow sister and victim.
And I also want to especially thank a friend that's accompanying me today. And that friend is Bonnie.
Bonnie Olson, who was engaged to DeAngelo in the early 1970s, stood up in court.
If Bonnie were able to speak, Joe, she would want you to know that as just a teenager 50 years ago, she broke her engagement to you when she realized that you had become manipulative and abusive. When you thought you could kidnap her and force her to marry you, even a gun pointed at her face could not make her choose you.
She faced DeAngelo more than 40 years after she called off their engagement, an event some prosecutors believe may have fueled decades of rapes and murders.
She bears none of that responsibility for your violent choices. And we consider her one of us, the sister survivors of your malicious attacks.
And those survivors spoke one by one from counties across Northern California. Gay and Bob Hardwick remember how they were attacked in their Stockton home.
Joe DeAngelo attacked us while we were sleeping. He kidnapped me from my bed. He raped me repeatedly. The aftermath of this attack has been with me for 42 years. That's a very long life sentence for somebody who had done nothing to deserve such hatred and violence and desecration of my body.
Then we heard from a woman who was raped by D'Angelo when she was just 13 years old. Mary Bearworth described how that night changed the rest of her life.
Joseph James D'Angelo forced his way into my home, into my life, into my room, a child's room. He raped me. He stole my innocence, my security, threatened my life, threatened the lives of my family. I was 13 years old. That night, afterwards, I had to break the ties on my legs, thinking mind over matter, mind over matter, mind over matter. I had to open my bedroom door with my hands tied behind my back. The whole time thinking I had to go through my father's door and tell him what had happened.
D'Angelo was stoic, staring straight forward during the hearing. His victim said, "It doesn't matter."
Joseph D'Angelo, whether you understand or acknowledge the depth of your depravity, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you will spend the rest of your life in prison, and I survived.
Finally, I can go forward. I have justice that I've been waiting for, and I never thought I'd get it. I have a full second half of my life ahead of me, and you've got what you got.
In Sacramento, Vicki Gonzalez, KCRA 3 News.
Wow, quite a day in court today for those survivors.
Herb Alderman died in his trailer. Nearly 80 years old, he was a loving husband who cared for his dying wife and treated his stepkids like they were his own.
This has left an indelible emotional scar that haunts my dreams. My heart breaks thinking of how Herb must have been terrified as he watched the flames creep ever closer with no hope of escape. At almost 80 years old, he was physically frail and lived alone, so there was no one there to comfort him or help him flee to safety. He was trapped in a metal hot box of a trailer that would soon be completely engulfed in flames.
Paul Ernest died nearly a year after the fire. He was badly burned as he and his wife lay on the ground, shielding her body with his own while the flames rushed over them.
My dad passed away on August 5th. Today, the aftermath of the fire remains an unwelcome and overwhelming part of our lives. There's a deep sadness and sorrow of things we will never get to share with Dad. But the most upsetting part is that he's not here to help my mom through the biggest hardship of her life. The fire took her home, her town, her familiar way of life, and her husband. It stole her mobility, confidence, self-worth, purpose, security, and happiness.
John Sedgwick, a father and a musician who volunteered every Saturday at the Senior Center in Oroville. He fought alongside firefighters all day until physically exhausted, the flames overtook him.
As I mourned my father, I longed for a shred of clothing, something that was his, that I could hold, smell, and there was nothing.
Rafaela Andrade, a mother remembered for her angelic singing voice. She died in the town she loved, in the home she loved, built by her late husband.
We lost everything. And I lost her. I didn't realize how much she meant to me until she was gone. She really did love paradise. She felt safe in paradise. She didn't want to live anyplace else because she did feel safe there. But then this happened. Because of this, I never got the opportunity to say, I love you, Mom.
Ernest Foss, a retired musician, and Andrew Burt, his live-in caregiver, died in their home.
The trauma and haunting memory of viewing my papa's burned face and charred corpse. The guilt I felt at having to put both Papa and Andrew through fire again as they were cremated.
The courtroom filled with the feeling that no plea or amount of money could ever make up for what these families lost.
Though there is some comfort, PG&E pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter. The crime feels far worse to those grieving the loss of loved ones, myself included.
This is my big brother. This is the guy who taught me so much in life. To be a man, to stand on my feet, to do the right thing. And PG&E took all this from me. I don't believe justice is served by a $3.5 million fine. That is less than Mr. Johnson, the person here yesterday telling us how sorry PG&E makes in 1 year.
When I think about how many people did not do their job properly, or how greedy the company was to not replace the equipment that caused this fire, it sickens me. How many failed opportunities to prevent this tragedy?
Those decisions were made by people. People focused on profits. People who will never pay a price for the utter devastation of whole communities and the deaths of 84 people in the Camp Fire alone.
This is KCRA 3. We begin with breaking news.
And that breaking news is out of Sacramento. The Sacramento City Unified School District has sent a cease and desist letter to the Sacramento City Teachers Association. The district and the teachers union reached an impasse in their negotiations over what instruction during COVID-19 would look like. Despite the impasse, the district and the teachers union have said that they will be moving forward with two different plans on Tuesday. The district says, quote, "Our families do not need additional anxieties and confusion. Instead, students need consistent schedules with guardrails in place so that they know what their schedules and classrooms should look like." With its promotion of alternative schedules, SCTA is knowingly fueling anxiety and fear among students and families. It's unclear how all of this is going to play out on Tuesday. We talked to the district and the teachers about the fundamental things they disagree on. A standoff over distance learning plans in the Sacramento City Unified School District.
We could not in good conscience accept their last proposal.
Days of negotiations over Zoom failed to produce a unified plan. The district is moving forward with its own plan of instruction, a hybrid of live Zoom classes and recorded lessons.
Our district will no longer accept inequities and a status quo where some students are provided educational experiences that help them thrive, while others are ignored.
But the Sacramento City Teachers Union says teachers will use their own plan, one that gives them more flexibility to address students' needs on a case-by-case basis.
You can't convince me and you can't tell me that my kids who live in CV Circle have the same access to Wi-Fi, to internet and technology as my kids who grew up in Lamb Park on 10th and 11th Avenue. It's not possible. It doesn't exist.
Preston Jackson has been teaching at California Middle School for about 16 years. He says not all of the students have the technology to keep up with pre-recorded lessons.
We're talking about addressing the needs of our most vulnerable students. Why will we not do everything we possibly can in order to make sure that we're meeting those needs?
In addition to pre-recorded lessons, the district is asking teachers to record themselves and their students as they interact over Zoom. Nikki Milevsky, a school psychologist, says this shows the district doesn't trust its teachers and puts students in an uncomfortable position.
Teachers work so hard to make environments in their classrooms that are risk-free for students to take, to say things, to ask questions, to give a stupid answer and figure it out. That's part of what learning is all about. And if it's recorded, that really takes that away from our students.
Erin Macy is a special education teacher and a mom who's navigating distance learning with her kindergartner. Her issue is the amount of time students are going to be in class.
Our first through third graders are going to be on Zoom for over 185 minutes a day. It is the quickest way to kill the love of learning with youngest students.
She's also concerned about the lack of attention to special needs students.
There is no person from special education creating their plan right now, and they're, basically imposing it on us, telling us that we can't use our professional judgment, we can't use our own experience as parents.
And we've reached out to the Sacramento City Teachers Association for comment on the cease and desist letter. We're still waiting to hear back.
This is KCRA 3. We begin with breaking news.
And that breaking news is out of Tehama County. 2 people were killed and 4 others hurt when a man with an assault rifle crashed this white SUV into a Walmart distribution center and opened fire. Around 200 employees working at the time scrambled for cover, some of them barricading themselves inside a room. This happened in the city of Red Bluff between Highway 99 and Interstate 5. The victims are being treated at St. Elizabeth Community Hospital nearby. Tehama County Sheriff's deputies responded. They called in Red Bluff police for backup as they worked to apprehend the shooter. A 911 call comes in from the Walmart distribution center at around 3:30 this afternoon.
I need all units to Walmart DC. We've got an active shooter crashed into the building, open fire.
A suspect crashes a white SUV into the center and starts shooting.
I believe this crash into the building subject has AR-type weapons.
Deputies arrive on scene, dispatch trying to lead them to the gunman.
So I'm getting information that the shooter's in the middle of the parking lot.
They find him. He fires at deputies several times. They fire back, hitting him in the chest. This green vehicle hit in the crossfire, its windows blown out. 5 minutes later, the shooter is in handcuffs.
We have one shooter who's currently being detained. The building is on fire.
The fire alarm going off as firefighters are called in. Sheriff's deputies unable to go inside the building until the flames are knocked down. They wait with the shooter.
So far we got 110-15 with an upper chest wound, need medical.
Fire trucks arrive, a chopper flies overhead. Once the fire is out, sheriff's deputies go inside to make sure there aren't any more suspects. They find dozens of employees barricaded in a room.
Keep them where they're at. I have a team going in right now with an employee to try and get to the back where all the smoke and fires to check on victims. So just have them stay put for right now.
Several people are hurt.
Female in the red shirt, she's shot, and two males, one green, one black shirt. They're helping out the truck lot.
And Walmart issued this statement in response to the shooting. We are deeply saddened by this tragic incident. Our focus is on supporting our associates as well as their families and co-workers in the facility. We do not know the condition of the shooter tonight. None of the deputies or officers who responded were hurt. It's standard protocol for them to be placed on administrative leave during an investigation.